Frances Ellen Watkins Harper bends the arc, a story by Jessica York and Polly Peterson. Sometimes justice is a long time coming, and it seems like change can't come fast enough. When I want to be inspired, I look to the past because I'm encouraged by those who came before, who struggled and brought about change in our society. Our Unitarian ancestor, the Reverend Theodore Parker, said, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. From what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." The hands of Unitarian Universalists have been bending the arc for many years. Have you heard of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper? Her hand was on the arc too. She believed in equality. She believed everyone should have a vote. She also believed in treating people with dignity and respect. Her work obliged her to travel from place to place, and she was used to enduring prejudice and injustice. Yet she had the courage to not let it stop her. Frances Ellen Watkins was born in 1825 in Maryland, when slavery was still legal. Born to free parents, she was never a slave, but by the age of 3 she was an orphan living with relatives in Baltimore. Her uncle William Watkins ran a school called the Academy for Negro Youth, and Frances received an excellent classical education there. Such schools for blacks were very rare. By the age of 14, Frances had to leave the school and go to work. She became a domestic servant. The Quaker family she worked for owned a bookshop and also had books in their house. Whenever time allowed, they gave her free access to all those books. And she was an avid reader and soon became known as a writer too. By the age of 20, she had written enough poems and essays to publish a small book. Life for free blacks in Maryland was difficult and became worse after the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. William Watkins was forced to close his school. William moved to Canada with some of his family, but Frances, at age 25, moved to the free state of Ohio, where she took a job teaching sewing. 2 years later, she moved to Pennsylvania, where she continued to teach. Her heart told her that educating black children was the most important work in the world, but she soon realized that managing a classroom in rural Pennsylvania was not the right job for her. Watkins moved to Philadelphia, where there was a substantial community of well-educated and successful blacks. Being new to the area, she found her way to William Still, a leader in the African American community. Still was a chairman of the Vigilance Committee, organized to assist runaway slaves passing through Philadelphia. His home was the busiest station on the Underground Railroad, a place where people fleeing from slavery could rest and find assistance. Watkins met many fugitives there and heard their heart-rending stories. For Watkins, the anti-slavery cause opened up a whole new career. Abolitionist papers began publishing her work, and in 1854 she gave a public lecture on the education and the elevation of the colored race. She gave more lectures that same week, and soon she had a full-time job as a traveling lecturer for the State Anti-Slavery Society of Maine. She drew large audiences, and judging from newspaper accounts and reviews, she was a wonderful orator. It was purported that she possessed a musical voice, well-reasoned arguments, and poetic language. In fact, she published a book of poems in the 1850s, and thousands of people who attended her lectures bought her book after hearing her speak. She donated most of the money she earned from her books to the anti-slavery cause. Whenever she could, she sent a few dollars to William Still for the Vigilance Committee and the fugitives. She hoped that blacks would establish a network of schools, newspapers, and churches dedicated to the betterment of themselves and each other. She believed that an important goal of anti-slavery work was to teach her people, quote, how to build up a character for themselves. In 1860, Frances Ellen Watkins married Fenton Harper. When the war broke out between the North and the South, she was living on a small farm in Ohio. Unfortunately, her husband died after less than 4 years of marriage, leaving Frances with a little daughter. She returned to the lecture circuit and traveled throughout the North, supporting the war effort and encouraging the Union Army to allow black troops to join in the fight. The Civil War ended and slavery became less in America, leaving blacks with great hopes but also an enormous problem. Frances continued to give speeches and lectures, working in the South now as well as the North. She did all she could to defend, support, and educate the newly freed blacks. During her justice work, Frances met many Unitarians also working to bend the arc. She felt at home with our liberal religious beliefs and knew that her work could strengthen the justice work of the Unitarians. She joined hands with them by joining the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia in 1870. She frequently read her poetry from the pulpit at this church, yet she kept her membership and taught Sunday school at an AME church, too. Harper died in 1911 before the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote in 1919. This was a cause she worked hard to bring about, yet Frances understood that her labors might bring about freedoms she would never enjoy. She said, "Apparent failure may hold in its rough shell the germs of a success that will blossom in time and bear fruit throughout eternity." Some of the fruits of Harper's labor and the labor of other Unitarian Universalists are enjoyed by us today. Yet we are not done. Oppression still exists in our world. Harper's hands are no longer on the ark. Our hands are needed to take their place. And we do this by learning about the life and legacy of those who have come before us, like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper.